Greetings. So in this, I talked last time about these antennas and different things like that, and the energy generation and the steam. So there's all these things connected. So I found this, just some pictures of what may be that in action, and most of these are very old, like 16th century is what I typed up. So these happen to be a number of them all having to do with the temptations of Christ, since we're in the season of Lent right now, and so it's appropriate, I guess. Now, some of them are very contemporary looking paintings or drawings. They are uh, very well depicting, I think, of the times, not only just in the 1500s, the 16th century, the 1500s. Some of them are in the 1400s, supposedly, or maybe that is the year 500 or 400. So maybe only 2 or 3 centuries after Christ when these were made. I don't know. Maybe longer, but I think they knew better what things looked like back then. Certainly, they were basing it off of what they saw around them at the time, which, as I mentioned before, is indicative of there having been much less erosion in the landscape. It's not too long after the Great Flood, and there are ruins from the antediluvian people all over. So we'll see more of this. Um, then first we're going to talk about airships, and well, it's mostly me talking. um, this strange thing shows up, and it's over a church that's depicted as burning. Okay, so that's odd. And then here it is again on a coin, um, something called a jeton. No idea. But I gave you a little bit about this last time. This is a news article from, I think it was 1919. New cloud making device to make them invisible. So the Zeppelins were being made once a week, armored and terrible, with a new cloud making device to make them invisible in Bern, I guess. Um, the newspaper Bund states that the Germans claim to finish a Zeppelin a week. That's way higher production than our space rocket factory produces down in near New Orleans down there. You know, the rocket factory that we jokingly called the Chris Hadfield Rocket Factory, where their production rate is 1 or 2 a year, but so far their actual production rate has been 0 fake rockets per year. They can't build any fake rockets per year, though their manufacturing volume production rate, the high volume production rate, is 1. But anyway, let's move on here. Got lots to cover and very little time and patience right now, I guess. Don't know why. So I guess it's because I did so much research. I want to continue doing it, but I got to share it. Um, Astounding news. This is reportedly a report from what they called the Sun newspaper, New York, and it's April 15th, 1844 is the date, and they are claiming the Atlantic is crossed on a flying machine, 3 days, da 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 da. And the actual name of the paper, as I read it, is the Extra Sun, which is interesting. But extra, extra. Read all about it. Well, they issued a retraction as soon as, not long after this was printed. And therein lies the rub. When fake news says something's a hoax, then there's something up. There's definitely something up. Like, the balloon boy hoax. It makes me think of Bubble Boy from Seinfeld for some reason, which I don't know about that. Anyway, it's officially a hoax. They issued a retraction, okay, and then Edgar Allan Poe stepped in and said, um, you guys are plagiarizing me. Well, there's another instance of this, but I'll get to that in a minute. But they said that a one monk Mason went across the Atlantic Ocean in 3 days in a gas balloon. It was later revealed as a hoax, and the story was retracted 2 days later. All right, so let's remember that, okay? Because they said it was, but they had lots of specifics. We can't see the specifics because it's all like blurred out. I tried to get my hands on it, online. I couldn't find anything that wasn't blurred out. So the details, as they are summarized by Wikipedia, which I don't trust very much. It says it's a highly detailed account. So, lighter than air balloon trip by European balloonist Monk Mason across the Atlantic Ocean, taking 75 hours, along with the diagram and specifications of the craft. So Edgar Allan Poe was miffed about it. I don't know if he needed money, he wanted royalties from some science fiction story he wrote because he was Poe. Get it? That's really punny. I know a really light-hearted person like him would really appreciate that joke. Astounding news. They were steering it. It was powered. So just like the technology that they're trying to work out these days, at least they act like they're trying to. They've had this. They've had this for a long time. So it brings up a couple of other things. Like, when did they really officially have these dirigibles? Certainly there are stories of sightings of them prior to this, prior to when they officially had them. So I was looking at that. In 1919, the cat was obviously out of the bag because they were using them in World War I. And then they did an official transatlantic flight, and it took 108 hours and 12 minutes. So they were still trying to figure these things out. They had it nutted before, but, they destroyed that technology, and it was a painful process to build it back up again. But it was 1978 when somebody crossed the Atlantic in an unpowered balloon. All right. So I have a bunch of pictures here. They have the number 33 a lot. I stumbled across this World War I acoustic mirror. I don't think it does what they say it does. I think it was doing something else. Because how do you have an acoustic dish or mirror made of concrete work for you to defend against a Zeppelin attack, which just seems like one of the most ridiculous notions imaginable, that people could float a balloon over your city and just physically lean out of their little windows and drop bombs on the city and not totally be shot down by riflemen. I mean, it's just a ridiculous, and it's a big gas bag, it wouldn't be punctured with rifle shots like crazy. I don't understand this. I think it's totally fake history, and I reject it until I see hard evidence. It just doesn't fly with logic. So there are pictures of these things over cities. The cities are always desolate with broken, the buildings have broken windows. There's definitely a connection between these dirigibles and the mud flood and a dying off of the population. They have super HD clear photos, the really old ones, you know. And I couldn't help but notice on the bottoms of these early dirigibles, it kind of looks like a speeder from Star Wars, you know, like that's where that idea or that shape or whatever came from. There's it just seems like, you know, the dirigibles come along there, speeders. It looks like a Star Wars speeder to me. But yeah, here there's over the city bombing. It just seems ridiculous. There are these like light flashes, puffs, whatever. Maybe it's like flak. I mean, like every single rifleman out there wouldn't be doing that. Well, maybe they had, you know, fake news, fake shootings and stuff to ban weapons like they're doing in New Zealand. Make stuff up and then blame all the citizens for the fictitious thing they did and take away your guns or whatever. Um, so here's like what they want you to think the artificial cloud looks like, but that wouldn't work. Like that's so nonsensical. How could that work for stealth? How could that work for invisibility? Like this plane comes by in chemtrails, and then it's like, oh well, so we're supposed to not know a dirigible's coming, and then like how long could it hang in the air before the super slow dirigible comes? And I mean, like people could get on a bicycle and ride faster and give you a warning. You know, it's just silly. Um, yeah, so I look at these pictures, like there is a lot of fog. There's a lot of fog, a lot of clouds. So I tried to manipulate the image to see what they're hiding. And there is like structure there for sure. There's some old, strange pictures. I mean, you can slow it down to look at it more. I just, you know, every picture of a dirigible over New York City, they never have the Statue of Liberty in view ever, nor any other picture that I can find prior to about 1918 or so. So, um, this I thought was interesting. Like, I just happened across this old picture, and this guy is standing here, and it's like he's on a glass, like he's standing on glass, and the structure goes down. It's not like the structure is a reflection. It's the building or whatever is behind him goes down, and then there's like glass, epoxy, some kind of clear substance he's standing on. I don't know what they're trying to tell or not tell. I don't know. I did see like it has copyright and then it has a date, but you can't see the date. It's been obscured. So here, the travel much more luxurious than how we travel. If you compare, that is the life. Maybe it takes longer than a jet, but I would rather take a dirigible. So here's the cloud thing in action. I believe looks a little damaged. You know, like maybe it's been shot up a little bit. I don't know. I mean, honestly, you think you could get away with that? You know, dropping bombs. I guess if you got high enough, the rifleman would have a hard time. But they would puncture the heck out of that gas bag. You know, I guess they have armor plating supposedly. Now this just happens. There happens to be a tree in the back. You know that is now considered a mountain, but it's a tree. It was a tree. It was a giant tree. I find them in the old artwork all the time in various stages of decay or destruction, and really old stuff shows them as big as they were, just absolutely huge. And the thing that really convinced me about it is this idea of once a tree, always a tree. in any desert, any environment, high altitudes, doesn't matter. If it was a tree, like the Devil's Tower, whatever that's called, for real is Mateo Tepe, but they call it Devil's Tower. That thing has trees growing out of the side of it, like trees growing out of rocks. There's not, it's the Great Plains, there aren't really, there are trees in that area, but it's just something I keep seeing. If it once a tree, always a tree, it sprouts little trees of how it used to be, Um, Here you can see steam coming out of the tops of the buildings. It's just amazing to me the amount of information out there. That looks like a Tesla tower to me. Mud flood. I think that is, that's in Constantinople, Istanbul, whatever. Kind of looks like the Taj Mahal, but I don't think it is. This looks like a fake building to me, and then there's a steam engine or generator or something there. But maybe it's not a fake building, but it just kind of looks fake to me. They do a lot of fakery in these photos. I find it all the time. This one I'm on the fence about. This photo with the tower, this is in DC, and this is what they call it in this photo. They called it at the memorial, but this is before it was the Lincoln Memorial. So they just had called it the memorial. And then the tower in the background got me interested. I started looking at things, and I found all kinds of stuff about it. We'll get to it in a minute. This looks like it's dumping like water, or it's gathering energy. To me, it looks like it's gathering energy or steam. Because look at the steeple. Look how it's glowing. Is that electricity? What the heck's going on? What in the tarnation's going on around here? There's something going on. There's more to that story, I'll tell you. Here's Vanilla Sky, totally blotted out there. They're obviously hiding something. So we're talking about, so that Washington, D.C., I started looking like, that's the Lincoln Memorial before it was Lincoln Memorial. That's a bunch of bullcrap, I bet. Of course it is. But all these monuments and things, they were already there in a different form. The ugly, stupid stuff with these crazy characters like Lincoln and whatnot that are deified there like gods. That stuff was kind of added, but the structures, the buildings, these things that you just don't see people building nowadays, those were already there. And they say, oh, well, it was all made in 1851. Andrew Jackson down. Now, why would they have done that? Was that officially going to be the Capitol then? I don't know, because they didn't have the Capitol building or the White House. So, and what did they do when they built, this is so crazy, when they built Washington, D.C., they start off by talking about how they destroyed what was already built there. And when that was built in 1851, so it was only less than 50 years old, they destroyed it all in like 1900. But when that supposedly 50-year-old stuff was built, when that was done, they destroyed what was already there for that. It's like, because they had to admit that they built over stuff, or that, the local knowledge, they had their stuff already there, built. It was all found. The United States Capitol building is not shown, but would be further to the right. Well, why don't you pan it over and show us where it isn't? Well, it's because it is there. And they are liars. So then the McMillan Plan, this so-called plan for what Washington, D.C. would be, with all of its, layout, Freemasonry symbolism, and the structures, pyramidal shapes, all that crap. There's a great video of laying a dollar bill over it that you should check out. McMillan Plan, it was written in 1902 by the Senate Park Commission, and it's just a drawing, and it's been like rubbed out, and then, oh, it's the mall. Okay. Totally all planned out, just like every other story I've come across with like New Zealand, Christchurch, and they sent a surveyor and he surveys the entire island and draws up plans for every building and every street and every bridge and every canal perfectly and exactly how it is today. Yeah, right. But this is another case of that. The McMillan Plan, 1901. Um, and it's like rubbed out on the bottom. It says the mall. So they have it all drawn up. Well, it was already, it was largely already there. They did kind of bastardize it somewhat. So I read this and just came across interesting tidbits about it. Like it was never formally adopted, and then it was only proposed, and then it was used as a guideline, and it was mostly a roadmap for destruction to destroy much of the more impressive stuff that was there. And then they left some of the neoclassical buildings and things, or the Baroque, different style things there. It was implemented piecemeal over many decades after its release. Yeah. And it's even continuing to guide their strange, destructive, and whatever methods. So from 1880 through today, they've been using it as an excuse to destroy the old buildings and build up these stupid, homages to fake space and fake characters and actors and storybook heroes and things like that are anything that is edifying the state, as it were. But hey, it's a government place, so what would you expect? So there's an architect who takes credit for all that crap, and as per usual, he quits before it's really even being done, and they switch people over and over, and it's a big confusing mess, and that's how they like it. It was a de facto, well, that was a de facto board member, somebody died. Anyway, it was never officially adopted. It's shrouded in mystery, really. They had a meeting of architects there. That's the thing about architects back then. They didn't architect anything. I mean, they didn't design and build anything. They were just the founders, they found this crap already done. They would maybe refresh it a little bit, but they didn't know the first thing about how to build some of these structures that we don't build today, because they would cost billions. I mean, theoretically anything's possible, but for a young country embroiled in the controversy of civil war and all that stuff, and I just don't see it. So what I thought was really interesting about this, all the photos show it pretty much closer to as it is today, but there was a neighborhood that they destroyed, and I thought, well, what are they trying to hide there? So I took a look at it, and they really demonized it, and nothing's really changed. I mean, Washington, D.C. is a huge city. It has a population of 600,000 people, and it is the so-called murder capital of the United States. Well, it was back then. It was just always like this kind of forgotten city. But other than the capital being there, I mean, the city itself that is, Europeans think, oh, I'm going to go to the United States capital city and just kind of drive around or whatever. And it doesn't take them long to figure out that, it's probably not a good idea, because unless you're looking for, some crank and hose or whatever, you're not going to find much. I mean, because the economy there has been made that way by the restrictions and craziness that governs it, right? So, let me just read through here. So, So, okay, so they have this place there that became known as, well, they called it Murder Row, Murder Bay. And it was this neighborhood that got totally destroyed. I could barely find any pictures of it. I found like one or two. And that's just what's on Wikipedia, so it's really not showing you what it was. But Murder Bay, it was a disreputable slum. Well, we'll find out why in a minute. As per usual, it's the government made it that way. Extensive crime, criminal underclass, and prostitution. So what's the deal with Murder Bay? Why did they want to destroy it? Because it's a slum? Is the government just out to destroy slums? No. They make the slums. Well, why did they destroy this one? Well, during the American Civil War, well, I'll tell you in a minute. First, let's give you the little background. It's funny. During the American Civil War, so many prostitutes took up residence in Murder Bay to serve the needs of General Joseph Hooker's Army of the Potomac. You know, it's the Civil War army that didn't have anything to do because there wasn't any fighting really that was really much going on. So they were just hanging out, and so they were getting some tang, you know. And so there was quite the market going on there. So that's how the name Hooker came about. That's why they're called hookers today, because General Hooker's army didn't have a civil war to fight. They were just screwing around, screwing off, whatever. So that's interesting. But they use that as the excuse to explain the decadence and high class, high value structures and materials in this mudflood town. It's a slum, but it had marble and it was the Gilded Age stuff all over. I don't really trust the picture that we saw. I couldn't really find any independent type pictures. And so they called it, it became home to such expensive brothels that it gained the nickname Marble Alley. The avenue was the site of significant competition between horse-drawn streetcar and chariot companies. So there's hardly anything left. But for a large lower class of people, it was very opulent and decadent and probably built for giants. So they absolutely leveled it. And no photos, really. But now it's a historical site, now that it's totally been ransacked. So anyway, I looked at some, I was trying to find, I found some pictures from kind of the area, and certainly, yes, what I did find was, stone. Looks like they blurred out a giant here on the left. Maybe. Could be perspective, could be a giant that they just, all this business about, the blurriness of motion or whatever. And I think it's a chemical treatment that they may have done in some of the photos just to blur out the actual size of some of these people. What did it look like then before this was built, according to their story? Well, they have trillings for you to look at. Pretty pictures that you might as well just, if it was a piece of paper, I'd crumple it up. I can't do that with electronics. That's one thing I miss about dealing with paper all the time. Of course, I'd be reading a library book in this case, but I would want to take it, rip it, crumple it up, and throw it in the waste bin, because that's what I think of these shrub rings. So the pictures you do find, the buildings are immaculate, just absolutely nothing like what we build today. There's a niller sky. There's hardly a tree to be seen. There's mud. There aren't even paved roads leading up to these amazing structures. So how'd they even get this dressed, finish work, stone work to these buildings when they were building it? They build a road and then tear it up and pour mud on it? Bull crap. And then here's a fake fire that they literally admitted to drawing on. So the pictures you do find, like in the Smithsonian, the more official and historic they are, the more fake they are. The fake fire. Fake bullcrap. So this dirigible, I think a lot of the early ones came in dirigibles. And yes, here's the cloud making, and they are cloaking. And that's how they look. I mean, it's a friggin' just like today. These airships, airplanes, whatever, and they are spraying out chemtrails, and they're making clouds, and they're cloaking and hiding, and they're flying around above your head, and nothing ever changes, you know? And I'm taking a look at some of these old tales of dragons because I'm telling you, I've read a few. I read a few that were very specific and descriptive, and what they describe to me, if you took the word dragon and you took the word airplane and swapped them, and you took the word breath and chemtrails and swapped them, you wouldn't know you're reading a dragon story. You'd think you're reading about chemical warfare. So I'll share that sometime. Let's see. So here's the indoctrination of children with the Zeppelins kommt. Led Zeppelin is coming. It's the immigrant song, and the song is the sound of dropping bombs. But it's ridiculous. But you know, that's how they get this ridiculous idea that people can float along in a balloon over your town and drop bombs, leaning out the windows and just dropping bombs and not getting their faces full shot. You know, it's a ridiculous notion. Absolutely ridiculous. Not the way that they present it. Couldn't happen. But something along those lines did happen, and that's what the 1850 events, or 1812 too, perhaps, that I've been kind of hinting on and maintaining over time. So there's something to that with the reset events. So rather than me jibber jabbering a lot, I'm just going to play a couple of my new songs, and you can look at these pictures. I've got some giants. I've got what I think they're Conehead Giants. Maybe I'll just put that in another video. I'll give you a sneak peek. I don't have time really to go over all this in detail, but so. All right, I'll just play some music. You can look at the pretty pictures and have a ball. Be sure to support the channel. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.